It's 1 o'clock, so I'll call the Facilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, July 19th to order. There's no public comment required. Let me lead us in a blessing, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day and thankful for the opportunity we have to serve the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. Thank you for all of our customers. Thank you for the very projects we have, and thank you for our staff and their families. Just protect them. And we want to pray for Janice and her family during this time of loss of her father. Just be of her as a mourning the loss of a father that she's had so many years. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. First thing on the agenda is minutes from the June 14th, 2023 Facilities Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to be approved as read.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next thing is capital purchase Trimble GPS units. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. Joint Water and Sewer utilizes GIS for mapping of our assets to organize and manage that asset data. It allows us to access record information on sizes, materials, depths, and even we have a lot of the record drawings hyperlinked to it, so we can get to record drawings by going to the map. Continuing to have accurate collection and maintenance of this data as new assets are added is critical for our asset management functions, and we perform the data capture through our operations and planning and construction crews in the field with handheld GPS units. Our current Trimble units, Trimble is a name brand unit, have been discontinued by Trimble and are no longer being supported. After various replacement models, staff selected the Trimble Model TDC 600 handheld hardware with the TerraFlex data collection solution and Catalyst position as a service support functionality. There are more satellites available, which is a good thing because with the tree canopies we have, particularly on St. Simon, sometimes we cannot get great readings. This will improve the accuracy of those shots, and luckily it has a lower cost than the original hardware that was being considered at the time of the budget. So the purchase request is for 4 of these units with the annual subscription to the TerraFlex and Catalyst platforms. 2 of them will be utilized by planning and constructions and 2 of them by systems pumping and maintenance. The total amount of the quote is $27,615, which includes a mapping and GIS partner program discount of $1,135. The budgeted amount was $45,000 in the budget, so this came in about 40% under budget once we went with the different units.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the purchase of 4 Trimble units with Duncan Parnell in the amount of $27,615 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any questions?
What's the service life of these?
The ones we had were 5 years old.
5 years old. What's our capital?
Anything over 5,000 is technically capitalized, and then we do different depending on the type classification on the depreciation.
So we don't have a certain length of time that's got to, I mean, in order to meet capital?
As long as it's a year, and
So anything
Yeah.
1 year?
that's correct.
And we're not capitalizing the yearly subscription?
Not the subscription, just the actual units themselves, and this will be a 5-year depreciation.
How many other units do we have right now?
We currently have 4 that are all being replaced because they're being, the forced obsolescence of these things. They don't
No
support
longer
them anymore.
supported, right?
Do we get any trade-in value?
It's minimal, Chairman, it is minimal, but we do get $100 or so, we send them in, so.
But are there still some use to them for something that we could use without, if we're only getting $100 for them?
Without the subscription support, it's really, to us, not very useful.
You could take coordinates, but you'd have to hand write them down because it wouldn't be able to be
Yeah.
downloaded or anything like that.
It's I mean, it's really more a finance thing than facilities piece, but have we looked at our capital policy and, to make sure that it's what new leadership wants? I mean, I think, 3 of the 4 people in this room that are on the finance side are relatively new with the organization. I don't know how old our policy is, but just to make sure that our capital plan, our policy for how we capitalize stuff is current, what we want it to be, might be worth looking at.
We'll take a look at it, sure.
Is there a particular concern that you have?
I just, when he said it was, anything over a year we capitalize, I just thinking, I'm used to at least multi-year. But I mean, if you're doing it if you're capitalizing something for 1 year, why not just put it in operations? I mean, it doesn't, but just curious if anybody looked at it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question on the data that's collected, how did that goes through satellites and then,
That goes through satellites, and then we get the data, the shape files in, and then our GIS team actually lays out in the GIS system.
okay.
So they do all their magic behind the scenes, and we just see the lines once they show up.
And is there a particular crew that uses these, or is it the same people always, or are they?
No, it rotates around. The GIS guys will go out, and the locate guys will go out and get shots on things. The crews in the field with systems pumping and water distribution, if they're installing it, they'll get points. So it kind of rotates around.
So it's just a matter of collecting the data that we need that's usable for us and
Yes, sir.
turning into something functional and useful at the end.
Yes, sir. We have, what are these, sub-meter?
These are sub-meter, we call them survey grade or sub-meter.
Sub-meter accuracy, so, within 3 feet.
So that's,
where
yeah,
it's supposed to be
which
at,
is,
right.
yeah, which is good. It'd be nice if everything was cheaper 5 years later.
That would be
wouldn't
really nice. That'd be really nice.
it? Oh, well.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is capital purchase, lead detection units, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. The U.S. EPA is requiring all community water systems that serve a certain population to identify and submit an inventory of their service lines by October 16th of 2024. You are required to identify services on both the utility and customer side of the meter. We have decent records on material types up to the meter. However, on the customer side of the services, our records are essentially non-existent. While it is not required to identify specific pipe materials, we're just required to identify whether it's lead or not lead or unknown. Georgia EPD established that any services after January 1st, 1990, the plumbing code changed in 1988, but they wanted to give a 2-year buffer for whatever material were still in existence at that time, can be considered as not lead. According to our tax records and building permit records, there are 11,728 homes connected to the water systems that were built prior to 1990.
Good grief.
Now, it is highly unlikely that we will have to check each of these services. We are working through a data exercise, looking at record drawings where we have and see what kind of materials we can find to reduce the number of installations that are required to be individually checked. Houses that have not been connected may not have been connected to the water system until decades after construction. The house may have been built in the 40s, but the public water wasn't available until 1995, for example. So those may not have to be checked. And then also a representative sample of the neighborhood is allowable. So if there's 100 homes in the neighborhood, you don't have to check all 100. You have to do the statistics to say, here's what a representative sample would be. To facilitate the work, you really have 2 options. The first and the most obvious option is to pothole every service line that has to be potholed, that you don't know the material. This option is highly inefficient. And a more efficient option is, and it requires the least amount of disturbance to both the buried lines and the services, is to use a device called a swordfish electron scanner. There's more information on the technology behind. To pothole, it would be more costly, more time consuming, and drastically more intrusive to our customer base. The swordfish unit, you can pull the meter out, run it both directions, and other than just the time period they don't have water while you've got the meter out, there's no disturbance to the customer. And they basically read electrical resistance through the line based on the material type. And that will allow us to be much more efficient in gathering the inventory as necessary. And I did the numbers on each one of these units. If we do 300 services compared to potholing them, it pays for itself compared to the labor for potholing them. So the amount to purchase 2 of them, including the subscriptions and software required for it, is $130,750.
We have a motion.
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the purchase of 2 lead detection units from Electroscan, Inc. in the amount of $130,750.
Any questions?
I'll second it, but do have questions. Have we considered just farming this out, just letting the contract service come in, or have we, not that I wanna do that, but I mean, have we at least looked to see if that's more cost effective than buying something?
Our first option, we are currently, as you know, changing out all of our meters. We requested our meter replacement contractor to take a look at this for us, and they politely told us that we couldn't pay them enough money to do it.
Okay.
Because we offered to increase their contract to do it, even though they literally just need to, while you're there, take a look at it, but Big
Okay,
side.
the 11,728 homes, we don't have to look at every one
No,
of
we don't
those.
have to look at every
We
one
just
of
have to
those
look at the
houses.
percentage, and what's that percentage?
It depends on the size of the neighborhood, so you have to do the statistics on if there's like what is a representative sample of the population. So if there's 50 homes, you may have to do 7. If there's 100, you may have to do 12 or whatever it is. And you wouldn't do them side by side, you would skip through the neighborhood.
And what's this gonna tell us over just looking where the meter connection? where
We
the
have a
meter
lot
is?
of homes, particularly in older homes, that may have had leaks directly outside the meter. And they may have replaced, say, 3 feet of old line with PVC and tied it back together. And just looking at the meter box, you have no way of knowing that.
How far does this swordfish go up in there to see? Does it go all the way to the house?
Yeah, you can go, I think they're 50-foot connections. So you can run 50 feet in either direction. 100 feet in either direction, sorry, 100 feet in either direction. So we'll go all the way to the house.
Does it get clogged up in there?
Well, need to pay attention when you're, kind of estimate.
Somebody
it's-
gonna instruct them on how to use it?
Yes, we've come out, they've demoed these, we've seen them, they'll do training. You get 2 days training as a result. They kind of step off, here's how far it is from the meter to the house, and it shows you how far on the device you've got the cable extended.
When we're through with this job, will we have a need for these, for
No, sir.
anything else?
No, sir,
So we're spending $130,000 for something we won't need in the future.
that's correct.
That's why I was asking if we might contract it out or,
But this is just a reporting requirement, right? We don't have to, there's no action on this?
Not yet. The expectation is at the next update to the rule, which I think is due in 28, that anything that is lead or unknown will be required to be replaced.
Do we have an estimate on how long it would take to complete this?
Each device, they estimate you could do 4 to 6 services a day. So with 2 devices, you could do 12 a day.
And how many can you pothole a day?
2, 3, best case scenario. And that's assuming you're not tearing anything up in the process. Locates, technically, I would assume you would need a temporary easement up in somebody's yard for everywhere you went.
Lead is
Would we
definitely,
want to maybe go to some other surrounding communities, smaller communities, and allow them to either use this or something for us to recoup some of our costs back?
We could certainly look at doing that if we could use
Marion or something like that, maybe?
some of the smaller communities,
Marion
certainly
have
we could use that, things, Jekyll, places like that, if they have some situations.
Could rent ours out.
Yeah, it is, understood that is a large dollar value, but, sometimes EPA decides to just tell you to go do something.
lead is
And this was not in the,
very,
nothing was in the budget
Yeah.
for this.
Sir?
Nothing was in the budget for this.
Yes, there was $140,000 in this year's budget put in for this.
For this, okay.
Yes, sir. So it's 140 in the budget, and it came in at 137.50. We were quoted 70 per unit, so we put in 140 in the budget.
this is a good example of why I wanted to be, able, when we get the capital budget, when we go to actually buy stuff, come back and actually talk about them. In case there are things like this, so we, instead of just blanket for the year.
Well, I think we ought to, even if we just do the minimum, I think we need to do more than that, since we got the stuff.
Certainly, we'll make sure we get the requirements done by the reporting deadline. If we want to go back further and confirm more after that, we can continue to do that. The belief appears to be that if you list it as unknown, you're going to have to change it out as well, even if you find out that it's PVC after the fact. So we want to eliminate as many unknowns as possible. So it's potentially a expense of $130,000, but if you start having to replace 4,000 services, that's going to go really quickly.
What were the percent of the houses on the mainland and on the St. Simons?
I do not know the percentage there. The bulk of them are going to be in downtown Brunswick and the south end of St. Simons, because that's where the oldest infrastructure is. Which also helps us to get to more of them, because you're not going to have to drive all over Glynn County to do it. You can hit multiple in a day, because you'll be several in the same general area. I mean, there is one utility, a director, that is fed up with the thing. He just said he's going to list all his as unknown and plan to replace all of them. Sounds like a real bad idea, but he said he wasn't wasting the time to go identify lead service lines. He's gonna list them all as unknown and start replacing them.
This thing's got an 80-foot cable, is that long enough to get all the way up in there?
For most of them, yes, sir. The overwhelming majority of them from the right of way to the house will be less than that.
So he's gonna replace them up to the house?
You're gonna have to.
You have to get an easement.
That's exactly. Doing this is one of those things that sounds really ideal in a policy decision without really understanding the impacts to both the
What-
utility and the customer.
What group's gonna be doing this, you know?
Water distribution.
Are we required to notify the customers of the results?
Yes, we will be required to maintain a active map on our website that anybody can pull up and look where every lead service line in Glynn County is.
So will it
So
tell,
the individual homeowners will get a letter?
Individual homeowners get a letter. Currently, you're required to notify them, I believe, at least twice that they have a lead service line,
Mhm.
with the hope that they'll take care and replace it themselves, but obviously, if they don't replace it, eventually the EPA is gonna require us to replace it.
and what are
This is
the,
all the fallout from the Flint scenario.
what different kind of lines will it tell us by the sonar or whatever they get back?
They have the readings, and I don't remember exactly the different numbers of the different material types of what the resistance is in there. And so, you know, you might not know 100% if there's some that are close, but you'll be able to tell whether it's metal or plastic or what have you.
So it's metal, it might not be lead.
Right, I'm saying, but different types of metal. Some of them have different resistances, so there's a,
So copper's gonna be different than
yes,
lead?
yes, sir. All that's different. In the materials they send you, it's got all the, here's what the readings are.
Galvanized, is it considered lead?
Galvanized is only considered lead if it's downstream of lead mains.
Well, they had Maine.
Yes. If there's lead in the system, the category of that is galvanized downstream of lead. And yokes don't count. So up to 2-foot sections connecting the main to the service do not count as a lead service. It's gotta be more than 2 feet, which will drastically help our situation out. Because if we had to take all the yokes out, we were gonna have to spend a whole lot of money.
There's the lead swab also.
Yeah, there's a swab as well. You get the resistance and you can read that, but to confirm, you can swab it and it changes color if lead is present.
If we get to the point where we have to replace lines, we have to get permission from the homeowner.
Technically, you would need an easement from every homeowner to go on their private property
Right,
to replace
yeah.
that line.
Will there be some PVC service lines, right? What are the different material service lines we'll run into?
We'll have galvanized. Hopefully, we won't have lead. There's probably a handful of them out there we'll have to identify.
Schedule 40.
Schedule 40, Schedule 80, regular PVC, poly lines.
Yeah.
So we'll run the gamut.
But do we have a big enough team to just pull people out of rotation and put two individual
It will be the teams that currently right now is doing hydrant maintenance.
So I guess what I was asking is, I mean, does it make sense to instead of getting two, just get one and just dedicate one group full-time to that and just say, instead of.
Well, that's the thing. You have 2 guys in a truck, and you don't have to have 2 of them at the same site. So one guy in a truck, 2 guys in a truck, one takes one unit, does it, because all he's got to do is disconnect the meter, and then he can run it, and then the other guys go down and do the other one, so that one truck can have both units.
Seemed like there ought to be something else we could use it for.
I mean, it could help us identify material types even for, beyond the lead, not lead. I mean, the different readings, you could accurize your GIS with it, to do those sorts of things as well.
But labor intensive to find that.
No, I mean, you gotta check them anyway, but, if you wanna go down the road and check all of them, even the ones you know are not lead, to confirm what the material type is, you could do that.
The people are gonna be doing it, are they aware of this?
Yes.
Well, it's good information for the homeowners, and it's gonna be their decision ultimately what they decide to do.
Did they have this at the conference?
Yes.
Did they have it at George Rural Water too?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure the
Spot.
person who made this on the board at the EPA.
This is what running along.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But,
Any
I
other
mean, you can
questions?
imagine if you had one of these older neighborhoods having to pothole,
Oh.
5 houses on the same street is going to be a
Risk to damage.
to utilities, landscaping, all of associated
Yeah,
things from
yeah.
having a pothole.
Any other questions?
No. None for me.
Okay, all in favor, indicate by raising your right hand. Passes 3-0. Next item is Academy Creek Sludge Dryer Rehabilitation. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. We operate a Fenton sludge dryer, affectionately known as Sarah, down at Academy Creek for the drying of processed sludge. Drying process takes our sludge that comes off a belt press that is about 15 to 18% solids to over 95% solids and allows it to meet Class A requirements. Currently, the sludge is disposed of at the municipal solid waste landfill site in Folkestone. For non-dried sludge, we are limited by the landfill as to how much can be brought per calendar quarter, and the quantity of that is impacted by rainfall for the quarter. So for the last week of June, we were not allowed to haul non-dried sludge
I think not.
to the landfill, which is a operational issue and also becomes kind of a container storing everywhere issue. So we've been working through issues with the dryer not functioning because it's clumping up around the barrel of the dryer due to the wear of the agitator paddles. Kind of think of it like an ice machine agitator that keeps things churning. Well, these things over years, the material has kind of worn away that metal and it's no longer scraping properly. And so we get lower performance, increased maintenance, and extended downtimes. The manufacturer of the Fenton dryer has been out of business for over a decade, but AIT Services of Brownwood, Texas is operated by one of the original designers and fabricators of the Fenton sludge dryer system. We solicited a quote from this gentleman to fabricate the new paddles and replace the existing one. And the cost to perform the work is $30,380. You'll see on the quote in the back, he requires 50% down payment for the purchase of materials and then 50% upon completion. So the request is to approve this contract with AIT Services to rehab the sludge dryer.
How big is this thing?
The
Curious what it looks like.
dryer is big as from
No, I
down
mean,
here.
the paddles and all.
It's the interior like a barrel that it rotates, and so the barrel's what, it's at 12, 16 feet, something like that?
At least, yeah.
Yeah,
It's sizable.
it's nice to have a scale, you know.
Yeah.
Makes-
Yeah,
Like
roughly the
right
same. Yeah, it's
here
about-
around the day.
Yeah, that's pretty good. If you doubled this, that's pretty much what
Oh,
yeah. If we could use that for an old one, that would save us some problems.
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve a contract award in the amount of $30,380 to AIT Services, Inc. for the rehab of the Academy Creek sludge dryer.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions?
Is it,
So, again, more finance kind of thing, but is this a we capitalize on this?
If it extends the life, yes, sir.
But this was not in our capital plan that was brought.
No, this is part of the operations budget, and it will be capitalized out of the operations budget at the end of the fiscal year.
And that's where we were kind of talking about finance last time. I'd really like us to sit down and talk about that process, because, you know, I don't really understand how, you know, we just go buy a piece of equipment and we'll capitalize it. That's a whole different capital budget than, you know, a project that's capitalized. To me, it's all capital. I'd just like to, you know,
The dryer's already fully depreciated.
Yeah, it's fully depreciated, yes, sir.
We've had it 20 years. haven't
but
we?
what I'm saying is,
yeah.
during the capital budgeting process, when we talk about the annual budget, these type of capital things aren't on there. It's just more capital things we wanna buy.
This was not on it.
It's replacements, not rehabs.
You didn't have this on the budget, did you? This just came up.
It's just, yeah, it's not a listed line item.
Even if it would've been in our radar, it still wouldn't have been in the budget, just cause the way we're.
Right, exactly.
Now, I think we need to go ahead though and start just be looking with vendors about another dryer.
I was gonna say, isn't there a replacement possibility down the way?
A secondary dryer would be a tremendous help, but
Cost?
On the Academy Creek
$5 million.
project, we had it as an add-on and we didn't
Right, yeah.
do it. And so, but we probably do need to start researching dryers and just deciding what type we might wanna put in there.
yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, have a secondary one, you could at least perform maintenance in the downtime on the other one versus being down and having to haul the pressed sludge instead of the dried sludge. Even when the landfill's fully accepting of it, you're paying for 85% water instead of 5% water.
And when will we be able to start hauling sludge from the other plants here?
Don't know for sure yet. Talked with the contractor about that yesterday.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the dedication of private infrastructure and easements. Mr. Klein?
All right, Commissioners, good afternoon. Thank you. Have 3 items on here for consideration. The first one is Autumn's Wood Phase 3A, which is strictly dedication of infrastructure. Second item is 151 Old Kate Road, which is strictly a sewer connection to a single-family home. And the third item is Beverly Villas, which is dedication of infrastructure and easement. And we have supporting documents attached for each.
You got GIS pulled up where you can look at.
We were working on that. Don't have GIS pulled up.
No worries.
There it is. Finally came up. Give that 1 second.
The servers are killing everyone. Oh, okay, right. Understood.
It likes to update too when you do log in.
This gravity sewer, Todd.
Old Kate Road's low pressure.
Old Kate Road didn't have ready access to the gravity sewer, so it's low pressure, as Mr. Burrows stated, to connect our system.
Beverly Villas has got an on-site pump station that they're maintaining.
Correct.
When you do this, all we see is a length of sewer line and length of water line. Would you tell us what is pressure and gravity in the future?
We can. We sure can. The oftentimes it'll be an associated record drawing that'll go along with it, such as with Autumn's Wood. Let's see.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, sir. Ready.
I make a motion the facility committee recommend the full commission approve and accept these projects and associated dedications and easements.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Did we not take bids on something that we could, on the project yet?
We did take bids, yes, sir, but they came in substantially over budget, so we're going through a value engineering process with that contractor.
All right. We'll move to the discussion section. Water production report, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. For the month of June, a little bit higher water usage as expected as we get more people into town, and also some increased outdoor water usage in some areas. On the mainland, 5.33 million gallons per day. Our average for the past 18 months has been about 5, so about 300,000 gallons over average here. You see we're getting some more production out of that Fletsy well. We were having problems with it. We determined it was an issue with the suction line that was keeping the pumps from priming properly. That has been corrected, and Fletsy is being used more effectively to take some of the load off some of the other well sites that we have. The Canal Road well, you see very little usage. That's manually operated. It's a well that's on our permit but does not have treatment capacity. That project is now out for bid. So, Ms. Pam, when are those due? End of August? Okay, end of August. So that'll be hopefully a recommendation at the September meeting to bring that one online as well. No taste and odor complaints in the Brunswick district for the month. You see, it's a little bit higher than it has been the previous 5 months, but mostly flat water usage in Brunswick as we continue to grow the system. St. Simon's, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, real quick, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I failed to mention at the beginning of the meeting, but I wanted to come at least get the approval item. I need to excuse myself from discussion items. I got something I got to do between now and finance, back at the hospital. So in order to be back at 3, I'm gonna run back and I'll be back at 3.
All right.
Sorry for.
Well, don't leave on my account. Don't leave on my account. All right, St. Simon's for the month. Obviously, increased water usage on St. Simon's in the month of June because it's tourist season. So 3.2 million gallons a day on the island. A lot of the bulk of that coming from the Mallory well. The airport well was one of the well sites. There's a remote well and an actual well. The actual well's been down for maintenance, and we're using the remote well, so we try to use that a little less. So Mallory picks up a good deal of the slack. The Hampton well, we are having some electrical issues at the Hampton well, so next month's report will show drastically reduced usage at the Hampton well as they're working through those issues. But one taste and odor complaint on St. Simon's, I believe it was at a vacation home that somebody had not been to in several months.
Flash the line and done.
On the water report, when are we gonna start getting something on the loss in unaccounted for water?
I think it makes more sense to wait till the meter project is over to do that so that we can actually give you decent data. We've run estimates of those numbers, but I think, just because the days don't match up, it just makes more sense to wait till we get all the meters online.
Right, because now we have to wait for the billing cycle is what really.
Yeah, the billing cycle versus the actual
Right.
production cycle, it makes more sense to have that. We could actually pull the usage from June 1st to June 30th.
Right, well, once we have all the meters in place, we'll be able to actually pull the data there like that. Yeah.
Right, and I think
It's easy, yeah.
currently, Ms. LaDonna, the daily usage that's running through the new meters is around 6 million gallons, 6.5 million gallons. So as a utility, we use about 8.5 to 9 million gallons a day. So about 75% of it's being captured by the new meters now.
Yeah, so we're well into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then South Mainland, very consistent flow at the South Mainland. We have added a few customers as they did some infill development in some neighborhoods down there. So a little bit more usage than we were seeing previously, about 30,000 gallons a day. But system, that one I know for a fact has the smallest water loss number.
Are you satisfied that we have enough redundancy on St. Simon's Island? Or should we have another well?
I think right now, we technically have 6 wells on St. Simon's because we have 4 sites, but 2 of them have backup wells. So the Mallory site and the airport site have backup wells. So with 6 wells, we're okay right now. What does become a little bit of an issue is one well, the Harrington well, if it goes down, the Hampton well has to push a long way to the south to actually get water there. So.
Actually, an additional well too, which is the deep well on Walsh Road, that could be retrofitted.
Yeah, that could be retrofitted, but that's not currently part of the permit.
That's in the Florida aquifer?
That's in the lower Florida, actually.
Lower Florida, and
2,200.
it's way down there.
Yeah, so we could route it back up to upper Florida, utilize it.
Is it permitted already?
It's not currently permitted, no, sir. It's not on our permit.
For withdrawal, yeah.
For withdrawal, it's not part of our distribution.
And the tank elevations are different down on that end of the island and the other end of the island?
Yes, sir, that's, what, was
So
it
the
18
pressure
feet?
system is different.
18 feet different between the height of the Oglethorpe tank and the Demery tank.
And are we putting in that pressure reducing valve?
We're gonna put that PRV in while the county does their, roundabout project at Frederica Sea Island, while they already have traffic control and things like that in place.
Well, right now, everything's connected, we just got a dead tank and,
That's correct. Demery tank's not in service, yes, sir.
so we actually have the higher pressure system.
Currently, yes, sir. If we turned on the Demery tank and separated it out, you would see a slight reduction in pressure, maybe 5 to 8 PSI on the south end, which most people would never actually realize that there'd been a reduction in pressure.
Another question, on the mainland, when we make those connections that have been approved now, are we advertising those?
It's advertised, yes, sir. They're due the 8th, August 8th.
That's gonna change the well usage, right?
It should change the well usage, allow us to, currently, individual wells are tied to certain tanks, elevated tanks. So, once we get that done, we can calibrate which ones we use. So currently, right now, Ridgewood really can't fill the I-95 tank because of the way that piping system works. It can if I-95 well is down, but the I-95 well kicks on so much faster than Ridgewood can get water there. Once we get it looped, Ridgewood will actually be able to help take some of the pressure off the I-95 well, for example.
The new tank out there is gonna help
The
that
new
too.
tank will help as well, because we can tie Golden Isles 1 and Golden Isles 2 to that.
And those are Miocene wells?
Yes. And Canal Road can be tied to that one as well.
Okay, at the next meeting, I'd like for you to just show us a presentation of the wells and the elevator tanks and describe it to us.
Okay.
Talk about redundancy and everything, if you
Okay.
could.
Yes, sir.
You got any questions on the water?
No.
Okay, let's proceed with the wastewater, Andrew.
Yes, sir. We got great news on the wastewater side for the month. Sorry, my binder here is just not functioning with me today. So, as you may be aware, or you may not be aware, we received a new wastewater permit 36 months ago. Because that's how long we had to meet the new permit at Academy Creek. They reduced our ammonia limit from 17.4 to 1. And we had 36 months to hit it. My thoughts on why they reduced it will remain silent. However, you can look at the previous 15 months, and the lowest we ever got for a month was 2, and so I was getting a little worried. But the staff has implemented some new operational processes, keeping a closer eye on our solids inventory in our basins and our clarifiers. And I'm happy to report that for the month of June, which is the first month we had to be below 1 for the month, we were at 0.85 for the month, including for the last 2 weeks of the month being below 0.5. Obviously, if the limit is 1, we don't want you running at 0.9. You want some buffer in there in case something's happening. So great job by the staff to get that down and keep that under permit. But 5.7 million gallons a day for the month. Leaving that facility, you see Pinova's flow there substantially lower. And I will say that 0.3 MGD flow from Pinova is on the days they actually discharge to us now. That is not every day. Previously, they discharged every day. Now they discharge 3 or 4 days a week. So if you did it over a full 30-day period, it would be lower than that on a daily average. BOD and TSS a little bit lower because we had a little bit of increased rainfall. The National Weather Service says we got 4.05 inches of rain in Brunswick for the month of June. I don't think the National Weather Service was in Brunswick for the month of June because I'd wager serious money it was more than that. But the plant handled it well. We ended up within permit on all things, 98% BOD removal and almost 99% TSS removal with the filters there. You see the reduction in sludge to the landfill. That was what I was speaking about earlier of we could not haul it to the landfill. So the last week and a half of the month, we couldn't haul sludge to the landfill.
So does that mean sludge is building up in the digesters?
We're building up in the digesters, and we basically load up as many of the containers as we can with fresh sludge. And then, the July 1st, when the new quarter starts, we take it all as much as we can that day.
Is that going to affect our ammonia the next month?
I don't think so. I think we've got enough buffering capacity at the current, 6 MGD level. We should be okay.
All right.
But on a graph there, you see the flows kind of jump around depending on the rain. It is the rainiest month we've had, or one of the rainiest months we've had this year, but the flow hasn't necessarily went sky high at Academy as a result. Dunbar, 3.0 on the effluent total for the month, right at a little over 3.0 because it's a little over 75% of the capacity there being utilized. BOD and TSS pretty much in line where they are on a monthly basis. Plant operated pretty effectively there. A little higher ammonia for the month. I will note we did have a violation on weekly ammonia at the Dunbar plant for the month. Had some blower issues and had 1 day of quite high ammonia readings that kicked that week out and necessarily inflated the daily totals there. But 98.5% removal of BOD, 98% removal of TSS. This is with the ongoing project work on site, so staff's doing a pretty good job keeping it between the lines there at Dunbar Creek.
When are we going to change over to the new basin?
I got to go out there tomorrow. They've got the floating mixer that's supposed to keep the things in suspension in the middle. It is 66 feet to the center of that basin, and it had a 60-foot power cable on it. So they were supposed to send a new power cable. It was supposed to arrive end of last week and get installed this week, so it should be online literally any day now. But Dunbar Creek, you see, flows are lower this year than what our readings had been for the first 6 months of last year. We have done some I&I work there, so going pretty well. I think actually replacing the influent line that we did probably cut down a pretty substantial amount of I&I that was getting to those lines.
Interesting.
At Southport, readings are around 500,000 gallons a day. Again, that's a low strength waste coming in there due to the amount of Wash down water we get from the auto processing facilities at the port, but plant operated very well down there, 96% BOD, 98% TSS removal for the month. Could use a little more flow down there, but we're working through some processes to try to help that along. All in all, plants are being operated pretty effectively. Big accomplishment by the staff, getting that ammonia down for the month of June. So kudos to them for their efforts.
Construction photos.
Everyone's favorite.
Thank you. Oh, there it is. Got it electronically. All right, commissioners. Thank you again for the chance to showcase what's going on in the field with a few photographs with our picture report. First project is an ARCO. That's ARCO Area Water and Sewer Extension. Top photo there, you can see one of my staff, Mr. Robert Lindsay, inspector, working with Jason Waldrop, who's the superintendent for UWS, who's our prime contractor on this job. They're at the 9th and Magnolia, talking about the water line install. A lot of work going on out there. We do have a couple RFIs that our engineer of record has created responses to, and we'll be likely discussing in the next commission meeting.
Explain what an RFI is.
Request for information or clarification from a contractor. So,
Can you give us an example?
correct, an example would be if there's an unforeseen conflict that the contractor has experienced in the field, and they're looking for direction from the owner on what to do. And typically that goes straight to the engineer of record to figure a solution, but it's a cooperative effort between the contractor and the engineer typically to find a solution through that problem. So. All right, next project is galvanized replacements, in-house project. Our water distribution team steadily working on that. Another good example, a good picture of a typical galvanized pipe there showing the tuberculation inside, and then also the typical install replacement scenario in an existing neighborhood as well. So utilizing a lot of horizontal directional drilling, which is a trenchless methodology, and it's working very well. Putting new plastic pipe in the ground, replacing these metal lines.
So we're putting 8-inch to replace a galvanized line?
There was a 1,400-foot galvanized line in St. Clair, and we require 500-foot spacing on hydrants. Or not 500 foot, 500 feet from each property to the hydrant. So we increased the size of the line so we can put hydrants down.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll be out of there soon. That has been.
That's all the galvanized line they had in St. Clair, or there's all the lines in there?
Not all the lines, all of the little cul-de-sac lollipops were all galvanized. They've all been replaced, and this is the longest section that needed to be replaced in there. It's actually the last section that's galvanized. That it's been a tedious month to get that in there. It seems like we should be out of there already, but contractors ran into some snags along the way, so hopefully we'll have that tied in by the end of the month.
Okay. All right, next project is the meter project, and steadily working on that. Ms. LaDonna, what's our total count for so far?
24,200.
24,200, so knocking away at that. Each one is, I like to call it a custom fit install. Those guys are really, if you're ever out and about Brunswick, you're going to see those guys. Chances are run into them, see them out in the field working. Okay, next picture here is Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility rehab.
On the meters, we're not replacing every meter box, are we?
Not every meter box, no, sir.
We're doing a condition assessment before we do replacement.
What percentage are we replacing?
Last I saw was around 80%.
80%?
80%, yes, sir.
So we're replacing 80% of
Yes,
it?
sir.
Okay. So most of them.
Yes, sir.
Well, a lot of our old boxes didn't have room to put the backflow in there.
Exactly.
And we're putting a backflow at
We're putting a
every
backflow at
circle.
every residence.
Yeah.
So to do that, you got to put a bigger meter box.
You understand what that's for? don't you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Dunbar Creek, we talked about the aeration basin. That should be brought online any day now. We are going to leave the existing aeration basin online through the rest of hurricane season. We worked that out with the contractor so that we have a little additional storage capacity should we get major rain events. You see some work ongoing there around the headworks. You see that white rectangular prism there is the new odor control system that's there. That should be started up in the very near future. So a lot of the equipment's installed. We're running conduit and things like that around there now. They poured some concrete there to extend that slab in order to do that. Working ongoing on the middle right photo, pouring walls for the UV and filter setup. That's been going on for several months now. It's a slower process, but they're making good timing there. And we have them looking at options for the airlines. We looked at our airlines coming from the blowers to the aeration basins, and it looks like all of the gaskets are leaking. So we're losing quite a bit of air there. Now, we don't pay for the air, but we do pay to pump the air with the blowers. So we're looking at our options to do that, trying to reduce cost and see what we can come up with in order to get those replaced while they're there. And you see Jason got some drone footage there of some of our aquatic life that hangs out at the outfall.
I think that's Elvis.
That's Elvis, yeah.
Is that Elvis? Can I ask about the odor control unit? It's different than, obviously, than one at Academy.
It works essentially the same way as the different manufacturers, so their box is different than the cylinder, but it's the same technology. Now,
Okay.
they'll all tell you that they have proprietary technology because their beads are,
Surface area.
0.7 millimeters versus 0.8 millimeters,
Right.
but they all do the same thing.
So
And this is a much smaller unit.
Much
Yeah,
smaller unit.
I know, I could see it's much less imposing.
Much smaller unit there. So we've got 3 of them at pump stations, 1 of them at Academy Creek, and this one here, and 3 different manufacturers. This one hasn't been turned on yet, but the other 2 manufacturers, we have similar operations, and so it's not we're not tied to any manufacturer on these just yet, because again, they essentially all do the same thing. They give you a surface area for the bacterial layers to build up so they can actually consume the sulfides.
Thank you.
An update on the clarifier, they're still working through getting drawings. They gotta get it submitted to EPD, obviously. Last week's meeting, they said probably originally thinking maybe March, looks like probably June now before that clarifier would be brought online.
When will the UV and the filters be online?
Supposed to be by the end of September. That seems aggressive, but that's what they keep telling me.
Okay.
Okay, all right, next project we're taking a look at is the rehab of Glen Place Mall and Oglethorpe tank, elevated tanks. So, Glen Place Mall, elevated tank there, is this a little bit electrical to complete yet, a little bit of mechanical to complete yet with the altitude valve, but otherwise the painting is about 90%, 99% done out there. Contractor had a little bit of issue with paint color, so they did go back and correct that at their own expedience. So that's done now. And I don't know if you guys remember the original shot of the Oglethorpe tank that we shot, but the osprey nest and whatnot that was on there, and
How do you put it back?
how yeah, they didn't replace the osprey nest. I'm sure it will reappear at some point, but how much better that looks up there.
I've had people that told me they were not aware we had a water tower up there until we painted it.
It's looks very nice now. So we're hoping to wrap that project up, but still some more time on that. What's going to take a little bit more
I
time
did
is
speak with the college at a chamber event a couple of weeks ago and asked them what they thought about it. They said they thought that their logo on that tank looked great, and they have been getting lots of compliments from the citizens about their logo being on that tank. So
that's all positive there. That's the way I look at it. So looking good. Next is a very visible project. It's 341 Crispin Boulevard. It's in the DOT right-of-way. Is a sewer repair that we now have an approved GUPS permit with GDOT, and we're waiting to have the public notice put out. and the contractor's gonna be mobilizing here in the next couple of weeks. Well, they actually are already mobilized with a piece of equipment you'll see there. Excavators on site, but actually doing some digging, getting their dewatering and traffic control in place in the next week or two.
And we mentioned earlier, received bids on one project that we're trying to value engineer down, hopefully by the August meeting. And we currently have 4 other solicitations out right now, so
How many bids do we have on that one?
one.
And what other projects we got out?
Canal Road, pump station 3101, 4001, 4002 rehab.
We already bid that once before.
Yes. We significantly reduced the scope to almost essentially electrical and just a little bit of else. The North Mainland Water Loops project and the Highway 17 North Pump Station.
Yep. So looking forward to seeing how those come in. And we learned a lot at the conference this week, that we're gonna be a lot of ideas and tactics we're gonna be applying in our advertisements and projects that we put out for bid. So that's it. Commissioners, any questions in particular? Glad to, I'll do my best to answer.
Good report.
Thank you.
Andrew, do we need to go in executive session to talk about anything?
We're gonna do it tomorrow.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all we have, sir.
Anything?
I'll say,
Return. Thank you.